Sometimes the ones closest to us carry the deepest shadows, and I want you to really think about that, not in the sense of drama or betrayal, but in the deeper, psychological sense that Carl Jung spent his life exploring. You see, Jung taught us that every person carries what he called a shadow, a part of ourselves we hide, repress, or deny. It's not evil, it's human, but when a person refuses to face their own darkness, that shadow doesn't disappear, it looks for someone else to land on. And often that someone is you. That's how secret hate can sneak into a close relationship. It doesn't always stomp through the front door with screaming and slamming and name calling. No, sometimes it slides in softly, through little jabs, cold silences, or a strange discomfort that no one can name but everybody feels. The person may never say, "I resent you," or "I'm jealous," or "I don't like you." But their shadow says it, loud and clear, in every smirk, every backhanded compliment, every conversation that leaves you feeling smaller than before it started. People project what they refuse to acknowledge in themselves. That's what Jung meant by projection. When we can't sit with our own anger, our own envy, our own fear of inadequacy, we toss it like a coat onto someone else's shoulders. We say, "You're so arrogant." When we ourselves are choking on insecurity, we say, "You think you're better than everyone," when we feel like we're not enough. So when someone close to you begins to see you through a lens that doesn't match your reality, take notice. They may not hate you. They may hate the part of themselves they see reflected in you. Now, let me take you a little deeper. Let's say you're growing, you're changing, you're finding your voice. Maybe you're starting to see your worth. And that old friend, that cousin, that partner, suddenly they're uncomfortable. Not supportive, not clapping. They start to say things like, "You've changed," as if growth is betrayal, as if blooming is an offense. That's not love resisting you. That's shadow rejecting its own discomfort. You'll notice it in the conversations that turn sideways. You're excited about something and they deflate it. They don't say, "I'm proud of you." They say, "Don't get ahead of yourself." Or maybe they bring up your past, not to celebrate your journey, but to remind you who you used to be. "Remember when you used to mess everything up?" They'll laugh, but behind the laugh is a truth. They're not joking, that's the shadow speaking. Their shadow is uncomfortable with your light. But don't get angry. Don't start labeling people as toxic just because they're struggling with their own darkness. That's too easy. The real challenge, the one that makes you strong, is to see it for what it is. To recognize when someone is projecting onto you. To hold your own mirror steady and say, "This isn't mine to carry." You don't have to hate them back, but you do need to see them clearly, because when you see clearly, you don't internalize the blame. You don't question your worth just because someone else refuses to deal with their wounds. And yes, it hurts. When someone you love is secretly resenting you, it doesn't just sting. It unsettles you. You'll start second, guessing yourself, wondering if maybe you are the problem. That's what projection does. It makes you doubt your reality. But remember this, people who secretly hate you will often act like they're helping you. They'll disguise resentment as advice. They'll say they're just being honest, when really they're being cruel, because honesty without empathy is brutality. Jung wasn't just talking about psychology. He was talking about human nature. And if you want to survive, if you want to thrive, you have to learn how to spot the shadow when it shows up dressed like a friend. You have to listen to the emotional undercurrents, not just the words. Listen with your spirit, with your body, with that deep inner knowing that doesn't lie, because the truth always reveals itself, always. You just have to be willing to see it, even when it comes from someone you thought was safe. And sometimes you have to love people from a distance, not out of bitterness, but out of wisdom, because peace is not about keeping everyone close. Peace is about keeping yourself whole. And if someone's shadow is determined to tear you down, you don't have to fight it. You just have to stop carrying it. So if you feel that something is off, if your light is constantly met with someone else's shadow, trust it. That feeling is trying to save you. You ever sit across from someone you've known for years, someone who says all the right things, but something in your spirit just won't settle? They smile when they're supposed to. They nod when you speak. They hug you goodbye, but you walk away feeling hollow, like you just spoke to a wall with velvet wallpaper. That, my dear, is emotional detachment, dressed up as politeness, and it's one of the clearest signs that love has turned into something colder. Carl Jung understood that people don't just speak with words. They speak with energy, with presence, with what they withhold. And when someone close to you secretly harbors resentment, dislike, or even hate, their emotional body starts to shut down around you. They may not argue with you. They may not raise their voice or storm out of the room. No, their silence is more dangerous than that. It's calculated. It's measured. It's quiet enough to make you wonder if you're imagining it. That's the thing about hidden hate. It doesn't always arrive with fireworks. Sometimes it sits right beside you, smiling. There's a kind of coldness that no polite words can cover. You can feel it in the way they don't ask how you really are, or how they change the subject when you talk about something that lights you up. They'll act like they're listening, but they're not really with you. Their mind, their heart, their warmth, that's all somewhere else. And that absence, that emotional vacancy, it cuts deeper than any insult, because you expect it from strangers. But when someone close to you disconnects like that, it rattles your sense of belonging. Now, Jung would say that emotional authenticity is the soul's native language. It's the way we know someone is truly present, truly invested. When that authenticity disappears, when it gets replaced with shallow pleasantries and empty words, the bond starts to rot from the inside. And some people are so good at pretending that even you start to doubt your own intuition. You start to say, well, maybe they're just tired, maybe it's me, maybe I'm expecting too much. No, you're not expecting too much. You're noticing a change, a disconnection, and you have the right to feel it. See, real closeness doesn't hide behind politeness. It leans in, it sees you, it makes space for the uncomfortable. So when someone becomes too careful around you, when every word feels filtered and every interaction feels rehearsed, it's a sign. They're protecting something. Maybe it's their pride. Maybe it's their resentment. Maybe it's the truth that they don't know how to say out loud. I don't love you like I used to. But instead of owning that truth, they build a wall and decorate it with polite smiles, and I want you to pay attention to how that wall makes you feel. Because when you're around someone who's emotionally disconnected from you, it doesn't matter how kind their words are. You'll feel starved. You'll feel unseen, unheard, untouched by anything real. And that emptiness will start to whisper lies to you. It'll tell you you're too much, that you should tone it down, that you should stop bringing things up. But let me tell you something, your sensitivity is not the problem. Your ability to feel when someone is off, when someone has shut you out, that is your power, not your flaw. You don't have to confront everyone. You don't have to accuse them of anything, but you do have to be honest with yourself. Emotional detachment isn't neutral, it's a message. It's the silent voice of a heart that's pulled away. Sometimes it's because they're dealing with something they haven't told you. Sometimes it's because your presence reminds them of something unresolved within themselves. And sometimes, yes, sometimes, it's because they no longer feel for you what they once did. And instead of saying it, they bury it in, I'm fine, and nothing's wrong, and don't worry about it. But your spirit knows, your body knows. You can feel when love becomes obligation, when affection becomes duty. Don't ignore that just because the person still shows up to dinner, still signs their name on birthday cards, ritual doesn't equal love. Proximity doesn't mean closeness. If they've shut their heart to you, you owe it to yourself to stop knocking on that closed door. Not out of bitterness, but out of truth, because you deserve real presence. You deserve to be met fully, not tolerated politely. And if someone can't give you that, let them keep their silence. You don't need to sit in rooms where you are only half, held half, heard half, loved. Half love is not love at all. Envy is a quiet thing. It doesn't always show up in dramatic fits or cruel words. Sometimes it sits in the background, just out of sight, smiling when you fail and flinching when you win. Carl Jung knew envy well. He said it's not just a passing emotion. It's a spiritual wound. And when someone close to you carries that wound but refuses to face it, it can twist into something much darker. Something that looks like love on the outside, but deep down it's rotting. That's what happens when envy turns into silent sabotage. See, when you shine, when you start stepping into your own power, when your spirit lifts and your path begins to light up, anyone who hasn't dealt with their own insecurities will feel it like a threat. They may not say it out loud, but their energy will shift, their tone will change, their support will get thinner and thinner, because your growth reminds them of everywhere they feel stuck, and instead of being inspired, they become resentful. That's envy, not because you did something wrong, but because you became something they told themselves they could never be. It starts subtly. You share good news and they brush it off. You get a promotion and they say, "Must be nice." You start taking care of yourself and they say, "Oh, you're different now." Not in celebration, not in admiration, but in that low, passive tone that tells you they don't like this version of you. They miss the version that stayed small, stayed quiet, stayed out of the way. Because that version didn't challenge their comfort, that version didn't threaten their illusion of control, but don't you shrink, don't you dim your light to soothe someone else's shadow. Jung said that what we resist persists. And when a person resists facing their own envy, it doesn't go away. It festers. It starts to bleed out into the way they speak to you, the way they look at you, the way they mention your name when you're not around. You might hear about things they said behind your back, or maybe you won't hear it, but you'll feel it. You'll feel the tension in the air, the tightness in their compliments, the hesitation in their support. And it'll hurt because you thought they were on your side, but envy doesn't always wear the face of a stranger. Sometimes it wears the face of your friend, your sister, your lover, someone who used to clap for you, someone who used to cheer, but now they keep score. They start measuring your blessings against their own, and instead of seeing your joy as something to celebrate, they see it as something stolen from them. That's not love, that's a quiet kind of hate, a hate born not from malice, but from a deep belief that there's not enough light to go around. But let me tell you something, your light doesn't take from theirs. Your joy doesn't rob anybody. Your success doesn't make someone else a failure. But some people don't know how to see it that way. They've lived too long in survival mode. They've measured their worth by how well they're doing compared to everyone else. So when you rise, they see it as a fall. When you bloom, they feel like they're withering. And it's not your job to fix that. It's not your job to apologize for blooming. You have to understand that envy is never really about you. It's about how someone feels when they look at themselves next to you. And when that person is close to you, when they've broken bread with you, when they've held your secrets and seen your tears, That kind of envy can feel like betrayal. But don't confuse pain with guilt. You didn't betray them by growing. You didn't betray them by thriving. They betrayed themselves by refusing to face their wounds and do the healing. Now, I want you to remember something. People who secretly hate you will often hide behind the mask of sarcasm. They'll joke about your achievements. They'll make little comments that sting, and when you call it out, they'll say, "I was just playing." But the heart knows when it's being played with. Don't let that kind of talk slide just because it comes dressed in a joke. The truth lives in the tone, not the punchline. So, if you find yourself surrounded by people who can't be happy for you, who can't lift you up without weighing you down with their envy, step back. Don't hate them, but don't let them stay close enough to keep planting seeds of doubt in your soil. Protect your peace, because the light you carry isn't for hiding, it's for shining, and you don't owe your dimness to anyone else's comfort. Your glow should never be a threat to someone who truly loves you. There's a kind of pain that doesn't come with bruises. It doesn't come with shouting, doesn't come with slammed doors or angry words. It comes dressed in concern. It wears the voice of someone you trust. It sounds like, "I'm just looking out for you." But what it's really doing is breaking you down piece by piece. And when someone close to you keeps chipping away at your self-worth, you have to ask yourself, is this love? Or is this something else entirely? Carl Jung spoke of individuation, the sacred journey of becoming who you truly are. It's not easy. It's not quiet. It doesn't always make sense to the people around you. Because when you begin to grow into your full self, you stop playing roles. You stop pleasing. You stop living small so others can feel big. And the truth is, not everyone will celebrate that. Not everyone can handle the version of you that no longer needs their permission to rise. Some people, especially the ones who haven't faced their own fears, will feel threatened when you start shining. And instead of admitting that fear, instead of sitting with the discomfort of their own reflection, they'll start to poke holes in yours, little ones you almost miss. They'll question your choices. They'll second guess your dreams. They'll find a way to make your confidence feel like arrogance. They'll call your voice too loud, your joy too much, your ambition too dangerous, and all of it will be wrapped in words that sound like love, but feel like limits. You'll hear it in the way they correct you when no one asked. You'll feel it when they give advice you didn't need, laced with the quiet implication that you couldn't possibly know what's best for yourself. They'll say things like, "I just don't want you to get hurt." But what they really mean is, "I don't believe you can handle what you're reaching for." That's not protection. That's projection. That's their fear dressed in your clothes. And when that happens, when someone you care for keeps tearing at the fabric of who you are becoming, you start to feel it in your body. You get smaller, you speak less, you doubt more. Because the thing about constant criticism, even when it's subtle, is that it doesn't just bruise your ego. It bruises your spirit. It makes you question the very roots you've been trying to grow. You wonder if maybe they're right. If maybe you are asking for too much. If maybe your light is blinding. But let me tell you this. Your light isn't the problem. It never was. The problem is when people close to you only knew how to love you in your brokenness. When they only knew how to stand beside you as long as you were beneath them. As long as you needed their approval. As long as you didn't outgrow the box they built for you. Because some folks don't want a healed version of you. They don't know how to love you when you're no longer dependent on their validation. And it hurts. It hurts when the people who should have been your soft place to land turn into the sharpest edges you face. It hurts to realize that someone you loved was more comfortable with your insecurity than your strength. But hurt doesn't mean stay. Pain doesn't mean loyalty. Just because someone has known you a long time doesn't mean they get to decide who you become. Not now, not ever. You have to guard your spirit. You have to know the difference between someone who corrects you from a place of love and someone who criticizes you to keep you small. There's a difference between guidance and control, between honesty and harm, between love that builds and love that binds. And listen, this isn't about cutting everybody off. This isn't about becoming hard. This is about becoming clear, becoming so rooted in your worth that when someone tries to shake it, they rattle their own cage instead. Becoming so sure of who you are that no whispered doubt can take root, because you deserve more than love that chips away at you in the name of care. You deserve to be poured into, not picked apart. So when someone keeps showing up with criticism disguised as concern, when their words leave you feeling small instead of seen, I want you to remember this. Love should make you more of who you are, not less. There's a silence that doesn't come from peace. It comes from something else, a slow withdrawal, a fading away, a kind of distance that creeps in, not with an argument or a goodbye, but with missed calls, delayed replies, and eyes that no longer meet yours the way they used to. And when it comes from someone close to you, someone who once reached for you without thinking, someone whose presence used to feel like home, it doesn't just feel like absence. It feels like abandonment in slow motion. Now, Carl Jung understood that the human psyche doesn't always walk away with its feet. Sometimes it walks away with its energy first. Emotional withdrawal is one of the clearest signs that someone's spirit has turned from you, even if their body is still in the room. They stop sharing the parts of themselves you once had easy access to. They used to tell you how their day was, what made them laugh, what scared them, what they were dreaming of. And now, they offer you silence or the safe, shallow parts. Not because they don't have more to say, but because they no longer want you close enough to hear it, and it's not always loud. Sometimes it's so subtle you blame yourself. You start wondering if maybe you're asking too much. If maybe they're just busy. You try to fill the gaps with patience. You reach for them harder. You speak softer. You make excuses in your head because the reality is too painful. The connection you had is no longer mutual. They're not meeting you in the middle. They've already left the room. You're just the last one to notice. People don't always say what they feel. They often say what they think you can handle. But their silence speaks the truth their mouth can't carry. And when someone begins to pull away emotionally, especially someone who once leaned into you without hesitation, it's rarely about confusion. It's about conviction. They've already decided something about you, or about the relationship, or about themselves. And instead of being brave enough to name it, they start to disappear behind their own unspoken verdict. You feel it in conversations that go nowhere, in the way they look at their phone when you're speaking, in how they give you just enough so you won't ask what's wrong, but never enough to make you feel connected again, and that in-between space, that limbo, it can break you in quiet ways. It teaches you to doubt your instincts, to silence your own voice. You begin to negotiate for crumbs of attention when once you were fed with abundance. But let me tell you something, and I want you to take this into your bones. Love does not leave quietly. Real connection doesn't dissolve without a fight. So if someone you love starts fading from you without explanation, don't fill the silence with self-blame. That silence belongs to them. It is the weight of their truth they are not ready to speak. It is not proof that you are too needy, too dramatic, too much. It is proof that they are not willing to stay with you honestly. Emotional absence is still a message, and ignoring that message will only lead you deeper into confusion. Because the longer you stay trying to interpret silence, the further you drift from your own voice. You start shrinking yourself to keep the connection alive, hoping that if you just love them enough, they'll come back to you. But love should not require you to beg. It should not leave you starving. It should not ask you to chase what once came freely. Some people won't say they're done. They'll just stop showing up like they used to. They'll stop making space for you in their thoughts. They'll stop holding you in their heart, and it'll be wrapped in politeness or excuses. Busy days, bad timing, too much on their plate. But beneath all of it is the truth. They've emotionally checked out. They just didn't have the courage to take their whole self with them. And I know it's hard to walk away from someone who's already halfway gone. I know it's easier to wait for a change, to hold out hope that maybe they're just going through something. But hope becomes a cage when it keeps you tied to someone who has no intention of meeting you fully again. Let them go, not out of anger, but out of love for yourself. You deserve presence. You deserve reciprocity. You deserve the kind of closeness that doesn't require decoding. So if someone's absence is louder than their words, believe it. Believe it the first time. There's a certain kind of cruelty that hides behind a grin. It doesn't slap your face or raise its voice. It doesn't call you names in front of a crowd. No, this kind of cruelty is quieter. It's dressed up in laughter. It cloaks itself in playfulness. It wears the mask of just joking. But your heart knows the difference between real humor and a disguised attack. And when someone close to you keeps using sarcasm to slice into you, little by little, you start to bleed in places no one else can see. Carl Jung taught that everything said in jest still carries the truth of the unconscious. People say, "I didn't mean it like that," but they did. They just didn't want to be held accountable for the weight of their words. That's the game with sarcasm used to harm. It offers just enough of a smile to confuse you, just enough of a laugh to make you question if you're being too sensitive, just enough denial to make you second guess your own discomfort. But deep down you feel it, the sting behind the sentence, the truth behind the tone. They say things like, "Oh, look at you trying to be deep now," when you speak from your soul, or "Guess someone thinks they're special," when you talk about your dreams. They make fun of your clothes, your voice, the way you speak your truth. And when you flinch when the wound shows, they wave it off with, "Relax, I'm only playing." But they're not. They're teaching you how to tolerate disrespect. They're training you to doubt yourself every time you stand tall. That's not play. That's power. And they know exactly what they're doing. Sarcasm can be a beautiful tool when it's rooted in love, when it's mutual, when it's light-hearted and safe. But when it comes from a person who secretly resents you, or envies you, or harbors hidden anger toward you, it becomes a knife hidden in a joke. And it's a dangerous kind of violence because it leaves no clear evidence. You end up feeling bruised with nothing to point to, nothing to explain, just an ache in your spirit that keeps showing up after every joke. You start to notice it in the patterns, how they're always the first to laugh when you mess up, how they make you the punchline in rooms full of people, how they find a way to make light of your pain, your struggle, your effort, and it's not occasional, it's habitual. It's their way of keeping you small, of keeping control, of ensuring you never forget your place in their world. But let me tell you something. If someone can only connect with you through mockery, that is not connection. If someone claims to love you, yet always finds their joy in your discomfort, that is not love. Love does not humiliate. Love does not embarrass. Love does not use your truth as entertainment. And if you ever find yourself silenced by a laugh, if you ever bite your tongue because you know speaking up will be met with your overreacting, or you can't take a joke, I want you to understand that this isn't about your sensitivity, it's about your clarity. You are seeing what they don't want you to see. Their jokes are not harmless. Their humor is not innocent. Their words are weapons. Sometimes the hardest thing to face is not the anger in someone's voice, but the applause they get when they hurt you with a smile. But don't let that crowd confuse you. Just because others laugh doesn't mean it's right. Just because others don't see the harm doesn't mean you have to ignore it. Trust your body. Trust your gut. Trust that quiet voice that whispers, "This isn't love." You do not have to shrink yourself to fit someone else's idea of what's funny. You do not have to stay silent so someone else can feel clever at your expense. You do not have to wear shame for the sake of peace. And sometimes the people who use jokes to hurt you are the very ones who claim they love you the most. That's what makes it so hard to walk away. But love without respect is not love. Affection without protection is not love. Intimacy without safety is not love. So if someone's jokes always leave you feeling a little less than, if their humor feels more like humiliation, believe that. Believe it without needing more proof. Believe it the first time.